morning, everybody. Maybe it's afternoon where you're at. Oh, I'm excited. And here's why. I've got a whole bunch of different songs that I play to kind of kick these things off a little bit, and they all kind of tie in just a little bit to what we're going to talk about. And I saved that one for like the best of the best of the best. Honestly, today is one of my favorite topics, and I think it's one of the places we get the most juice for the squeeze when it's all said and done, especially early in a conversation. So we're going to talk about some cold calling, I should say, how to stand out from the crowd. But before we do that, I want to do a little experiment. So I'm not saying this because I want happy birthday wishes. I'm saying this because we're going to do a little experiment. So today is my birthday, April 28th. Won't tell you the year, but April 28th is my birthday, and I'm here because this is what I love doing. I love helping agents, especially just people in general, get better at their craft. So first and foremost, thank you for stopping by. But I want to do a little experiment. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the birthday paradox, but if you put 23 people in a room, there's a 50-50 chance 2 of them share the same birthday. So I'm curious if anybody else has a birthday on April 28th. Raise your hand. I'll give it 10 seconds. I guess we don't need 30 seconds. Raise your hand if today's your birthday. Doesn't look like it, but I'll tell you what, if you're in a room, if you're doing like a group presentation or something like that, and you've got a big room of folks, this is a really fun game, a really fun icebreaker to take. You go up to like a grease board, and you just go around the room and you say, give me your month and your date, and you see how many of them match up. And like I said, you'd be crazy surprised when you start to get 30 or 40 people in a room, how many of them double up. Pretty cool stuff. So that out of the way, I appreciate the birthday wishes again. Thank you so much. We're going to kind of dive in to the meat and potatoes of today. But before we do that, like we have in the last couple of weeks, we've had some real champions up here. I'm hoping we can just get a couple people to raise their hand and join me up here in the panel. I promise. It'll go well. I'm not going to put you on this. Well, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot, but I'm not going to embarrass you. I promise you that much. We all get stronger together. We all get better together. So raise your hand if you want to come join me, and one of my colleagues will get you up here. Again, I'd really appreciate it if you did. Moving right along, couple of kind of housekeeping things here. Keep an eye out for a follow-up link here. We're gonna have a blog post that kind of touches on some of the things that we're talking about. It kind of takes it a little bit further. If you got questions, love questions, especially ones that I can answer. So we'll see if we can get them all answered today, but submit them as we go along, or hold out till the end, and we'll do a little Q&A session as we wrap up here. And then last but not least, if you want to watch this again, or if you want to share it with somebody, stay tuned for a little link coming your way with this recording. So who's the guy with the waterfall behind him? Well, my name is Matt Eayrs. I've done a little bit of everything, 17 years sales experience all in. I've done B2B, B2C, all that sort of stuff. And for about the last 30 months, I've been in front of every single training class that's come through our life and health department, I should say, at NatGen. So we're coming up on another big class. I think we're up over about 750 so far in my career. So definitely a passion of mine. So without further ado, drum roll, please. Today's lesson is all about foreshadowing, and Simon Sinek is one of my absolute favorite authors. If you've never read any of his stuff, Start With Why and Leaders Eat Last are two amazing books. And this just rings so true to me, is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. I'll say that one more time. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. There's a lot of insurance professionals out there, and there's a lot of good ones out there. I'm not gonna hide behind that fact. It's who they choose to do business with more than the solution. So that's why, again, we have to be pretty passionate about what it is that we do. So I'm going to tell you a story, and it goes kind of like this. So I think like the real first like adult moment that I ever had in my entire life is when I had to go buy furniture for the first time, right? I was that Pier 1 Papazon guy, right? Remember those chairs, kind of the bowl that sat and it was kind of wicker or bamboo. And then we kind of upgraded that to like maybe like a faux leather couch, you know, kind of wasn't overly expensive. So then we closed on our first house, and it was time to go buy furniture that fit the room. And so if your city's set up anything like mine, I'm in a suburb of Portland. We've got kind of this furniture row area, right? Where there's like 3 or 4 furniture places all in this like same shared parking lot. And we were all excited. We were going to go out. We're going to start looking for furniture, my wife and I. And so we walk into the first place, And this lady comes running right at us, and she said, "How are you doing today? What can I help you with? What brings you into the store?" And very nice lady, but it was all about kind of the product. She's like, I've got this, and I'm like, I don't even really know what I'm looking for yet. We're just gonna kind of take a stroll. And she stayed like 1.5 feet, 2 feet behind us, and it kind of felt a little awkward. And then we kind of come to this living room that they have set up, and my wife's like, "I really like this couch and love seat." And she didn't like the color, and she was curious what other colors it came in. And so she turned to the salesperson and said, "Does this come in other colors?" And the salesperson said, "Yeah, it comes in the same color as that pillow," because my wife had alluded to the fact that she liked the color of the pillow. And I kind of touched the pillow, and I touched the couch, and I'm like, "Well, that's a different texture. Like, it's going to look exactly like that." She goes, "No, not really, but it's going to be pretty close." And that was it. As salespeople, we are some of the toughest people to sell to in the world. So I said, "Thank you for your time," and we kind of walked out, and we went to this other shop that was kind of down at the end. And I come walking in, and there's this person standing in the front. This guy, he's about 6'4", and he sees me, and he goes, "You're a big guy, kind of like me." Now I'm 6'1", 280, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of a big guy like you. And he's like, "Do you ever find you have a hard time getting out of furniture because it's just too low to the ground?" And I was like, I've never really thought about it before, but yeah, all my friends and family, they have like these couches that are real low to the ground. And he's like, "Well, what I want you to do is I want you to look through our entire floor room." And it's a big floor room. He's like, "Everything is custom made. We can customize any of it. We can make it longer. We can make it shorter. We can make it narrower. We can make it wider." And a lot of people think that custom furniture is really expensive, but it's not all that expensive. What determines the price is where it comes from. He's like, "We've got couches in the $10,000, $12,000 range, and I'll tell you, they're not any better than the couches that are in the $2,000 or $3,000 range. It's just because they come from South Carolina, and we have to pay to have them shipped all the way across." He's like, "Think about what diesel costs, think about what a truck driver costs, all that sort of stuff. It just causes the price to go up." Then he goes, "We've got these other couches that come from British Columbia, right down I-5. He's like, "That's not a real far drive, and it's still the same quality. It's just a lot more affordable." He's like, "So what I want you to do is kind of look around. I've been doing this for 16 years. Everything we've got comes in over 250 colors. And I'd love to help you out as you kind of look around." Now, here's where he hit me with the first question. "I'm going to ask you a few questions about your room. How big is it? How small is it? Because there's nothing more demoralizing than finding what you think is the perfect furniture. And when it shows up, it either looks like dollhouse furniture, right, where it's too small for the room, or it just way overpowers the room, and now you can't get in and out of the door. There's no real walkway." And lo and behold, he ended up finding some great stuff for us. It was the easiest shopping transaction I have ever had in my entire life. And then something crazy happened. COVID happened. And so he calls me up, and it was supposed to be delivered in 4 to 6 weeks, somewhere in that neighborhood, which is perfect because we were closing in a month. And he's like, "So I got some bad news. The factory's been shut down, and we don't know when it's going to open back up because of COVID." Now, you've got a couple of options. You can wait, and that's totally fine if you're okay with that. But if you need something sooner, I'll refund 100% of your money, and you can go shop somewhere else. And I said to him, no, I don't want to go through that all again. Like, I found the person I wanted to buy furniture from, and I'm fine waiting an extra month or 2 months. And so we ended up riding it out on a futon for a little while. Lo and behold, the furniture showed up, and it fit the room perfectly. And what he did was he did a great job of foreshadowing how he can help. So at the end of the day, again, this is where kind of the rubber meets the road, or rubber hits the road in our cold calling format. A lot of times we get really excited. We want to just find out first name, last name, zip code, date of birth, all that sort of stuff, because that's what we need to go shopping for plans. But at the end of the day, the customer doesn't really know why we're asking these questions yet. When we talked about rapport a couple of weeks ago, we talked about, again, the fact that we are professionals. You are all full-time insurance agents. So remind people of that. So as you get into the phone call, especially this time of the year, things change once we get into the busy season, right? Once we get into AEP or OEP, things accelerate a little bit. But we're in kind of the slow season right now, where we can kind of hold hands and we can kind of build those relationships. Because if we can't help them today, we want to make sure that we can help them when they have that kind of enrollment period, right? Whether it's under 65 during OEP, or if it's a Medicare related beneficiary who's gonna sign up in that AEP timeframe. So what we want to do is we want to slow things down a little bit. And a foreshadow might sound something like this. So what I do is I've been doing this for X amount of years. And what I do is I really help people manage their healthcare, their health insurance. So they're getting everything they need and they're not overpaying for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you some basic questions, just things you're probably used to giving out, first name, zip code, last name, date of birth, stuff like that. And then I'm going to ask you some questions about how you use your insurance. And so I want to find out again, what plan might fit your needs the best. How does that sound? And now we've got buy-in from the customer and they know kind of how the process is going to go. Most importantly, we've had the chance to kind of build some goodwill before we just start jumping in and showing plans. And the crazy part is we can foreshadow through the entire phone call, not just in the initial part, right? I think where we get the most traction out of it is that first part of the phone call, because again, it frames how the whole call is going to go. But as we're going to go looking for plans, if it's over the phone or if they're in front of us in an office or if we're on a Zoom call or something like that, make it known how many plans are out there, right? If they're a Medicare beneficiary, you know what? In your zip code, you're pretty lucky. In all honesty, there's 35, 37, 22 plans in your area. So it's going to take me a little bit to kind of look through all these and match up kind of what we've talked about and what's important to you. So just give me a couple of minutes here. Or if they're an under 65 person, right? Somebody looking for family insurance or individual insurance. You know what? There's a lot of moving pieces to insurance. If you've had employer coverage before, a lot of times people don't realize that you're paying for 2, 3, 4, even sometimes 5 or 6 plans because you just have one payment that comes out of your check. And so what happens is I'm going to go and I'm going to look for these things that are important, how they all kind of fit together. And believe it or not, I've got access to X amount of plans with X amount of carriers. Again, hitting them with that number really puts people at ease because it's like, man, I got to the right spot. I got to somebody who really knows this industry, is going to be able to kind of walk me through the minefield. And then we can kind of go through. And now when we're getting ready to present the plan, we can foreshadow a little bit again, right? Hey, so you know what? I found something that I think is going to fit your needs pretty well here. And a lot of times I like to tell them to get a pen and paper. Because we learn a few different ways, right? Hearing, seeing, and doing. When we tell them to get a pen and paper, they're doing all 3 of those. Or if they're in front of us, we can slide paper across and maybe highlight some things. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over kind of the basics of what we talked about. Like, there's a lot more built into this plan that we're going to talk about initially, but I just want to point out the 3 or 4 things that you and I kind of talked about that seem like they're really, really important to you. Sound good? And now we can go in and again, we can present the plan in a way that it makes sense to them. Gives them a chance to open up and ask some questions. A lot of times, the reason people don't ask questions is because they're worried they're going to sound stupid. They're worried it's going to be a dumb question. And I always say the only questions that are dumb are the ones that you don't ask, because if you don't know, ask away. And so what it does again is it makes that other person on the other end of the phone, other end of the Zoom call, other end of the table, whatever it might be, more comfortable and confident to asking questions. And anybody that's been in insurance for any number of years knows that as soon as they start asking questions, it's game over, because they're invested, they're involved, and most importantly, they trust you to give them the right answer. Pretty powerful thing when you stop and think about it. So we're going to kind of go through our slide deck here. The big one is the thing this does most importantly is it shines a light on the customer, shines a light on the beneficiary, shows them the path to the solution, Here's where you're at. Here's what you need. Here's maybe what you like or don't like about your current coverage, or what you liked or didn't like about your employer coverage or your group coverage or whatever it might be that they're switching from. And here's how we're going to get you to that better spot. We're going to foreshadow a little bit there. Helps us make a connection. Again, Simon Sinek is a big why guy, When we have why, we have something we can hold on to. What isn't as important as why we need something. So it kind of gives them our why a little bit. It builds value. Again, I can't stress this enough, especially early on in a phone call, to foreshadow the fact that, again, you are the professional, you are the expert. You've been through all kinds of training. You've helped all kinds of other people in this position. And you've got repeat clientele as well, which again bodes to the fact that you helped them not just the first time correctly, but they're coming back to you for more advice and more products. And that kind of leads into the last one here, which is a client for life. In the Medicare world, people who are really happy with their benefit advisor or insurance agent are an absolute conveyor belt to friends and family members that are aging in. On the under 65 world, it's pretty common that first year you sign up a client that you'll get, a major medical or a short term, and then you'll get a dental. And if there's vision needs in there, we'll get that. But there's not a whole lot of life insurance. There's not a whole lot of plan enhancers because they just don't know you well enough yet. But those products go up like 150% the second year. That's why it's so important, again, to pull these clients in really close, because next year we have the opportunity to pitch the same things. And that's how I illustrate the way that you can grow your book of, you can grow the number of products that you've sold year over year without growing your book of business exponentially. So that's really what we're here to do. Again, is to just grab those customers, explain to them how the process is going to work. And it doesn't just go in the beginning, through the entire phone call. I really believe we cannot foreshadow enough. So much so that in sales, tough times are promised. Tough times are absolutely promised. It's not a straight line. It goes up and down, and it goes up and down. And whenever we hit one of those dips, the first thing we do is we get an all hands meeting. We start talk about foreshadow. We get all of our leaders in their morning huddles to talk about foreshadow. And I am not making this up. In a span of 5 to 7 days, we see an immediate bump in numbers. And it's not that the clients got more yes affected, if you know what I mean. It's not we just had the good calls started coming in. I really believe, again, it's because we're pulling those people in nice and close, and we're treating them different from the rest of the crowd. That's the number one thing that foreshadowing allows you to do, is stand out from the crowd, because I want to get to know you a little bit before I just work on selling you something. Somebody that I had the opportunity to talk to earlier this week had a great analogy, and it goes like this. Potato chips, right? Who doesn't love chips? I'm a big football guy. Sunday, I guarantee you there's 2 or 3 bags of chips that make it into their way into the shopping cart. But when you walk down the aisle, a lot of times there's like chips on both sides, and they're all different varieties, all different kinds. And they're all made out of the same 4 or 5 basic ingredients, right? It's not that one is earth-shatteringly different than another. Well, maybe sun chips, I guess that's a little different. But at the end of the day, you pick the one out, you put the one in your cart that you kind of have that emotional connection to, the one that just for one reason or another, this is the one that I like. For me, in all sincerity, it's Doritos. I like all shapes, sizes of Doritos because it's what I used to have when I was a kid. It's great. But other people, like my wife, she loves Ruffles with Bridges because that's just what she likes. And again, as insurance professionals, we're kind of like potato chips. They choose the person that they like, or the brand that they like first, and then they choose the overall solution when it's all said and done. So we're shooting for right around 15 minutes with these guys. If I subtract the 1 minute that I let you listen to a little AC/DC, that's probably my favorite AC/DC song, we're right at 18 minutes. So I'm going to open the floor up. I'm curious if we have any questions.
We do. So we have, how do I find my why?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And here's the thing, I never get sick of asking people in the insurance industry, why did you get into this business? What brought you into insurance? And I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but I don't remember anybody when I was in second grade who stood up in front of the class and said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Not a single one of them said, I want to be an insurance salesman. As a matter of fact, salesperson, I apologize. Not a single one of them even really said, I want to be in sales. We all wanted to be astronauts or jet fighter pilots or race car drivers or something like that. So traditionally, when we end up in the insurance industry, it's for a couple different reasons. I talked to a lot of people, and the reason they got into insurance is they didn't want to have somebody telling them what to do, and that kind of expands its way into a couple of different things. I want to spend more time with my kids, right? It gives me the opportunity to kind of pick and choose my schedule. If I want to be off from 3 to 5 to coach my son's flag football team or my daughter's softball team, or if I want to volunteer here, do whatever I want, I can create that time because I am my own boss. You know what? I love the summer. So I can stay home with my kids or grandkids or whatever it is. And the summer is kind of a slower time, right? We're ramping up for the busy season, but it's not nearly as busy as the fall is. And so again, they get into it for that reason. And I always think your why absolutely has to be what's at home, right? Whether it's, what you like to do for fun, if it's providing for your family or whatever that is. And I really believe that's your why. And that comes through when you're talking to people, right? Hey, I'm looking for insurance for my wife and I. Oh, you know what? I'll tell you what, That's really important to me too, because when my wife and I had to pick our insurance, XYZ or things like that, or when my parents had to pick their insurance and they were aging into Medicare, they were really scared. And that's one of the reasons that I'm really, really proud of what it is that I do, because I can make that a pretty easy process for you. I can make it really understandable. But again, most importantly, it boils down to that. As a matter of fact, I've got a couple of coworkers, and what they did is they've got the two monitors that are kind of, well, my hands don't really work like that, but they're in a V pattern. So they can look at this screen, they can look at this screen, and then flanked on either side, they have pictures of family members. One person I know is huge into trucks. And so there's pictures of two trucks on either side of his computer. So when he's having a bad day, left, right, okay, that's what I'm doing this for. Family fishing trips. This behind me is one of the waterfalls on my favorite Steelhead River in the Pacific Northwest. Won't tell you, but it's in the Pacific Northwest anyways. So again, I think what it is it's going to be different for everybody. But at the end of the day, again, identifying that and falling back to that, especially on a slow day, is extremely important, extremely important. Great question. Any other questions?
Do I focus on my why or the client's why?
Ooh, I'm telling you, we're getting some deep questions today. I think you have to do both. And I think what happens is we can do both in the very beginning. And this is, again, what gets us those extra inches on these cold calls when we're first contacting a customer. Tell them our why. Just like the furniture guy said, hey, I've been in this industry for 16 years. I've got 250 different colors. I can make it longer, shorter, narrower, wider, all that sort of stuff. Hey, you know what? I've been doing insurance for X amount of years. I've helped X amount of clients really secure the coverage that they need. And I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than when you get a thank you note from a customer who avoided a huge financial disaster because I was able to get them the plan that worked out right for them. Now, what has you shopping for insurance, or what made today the day to pick up the phone and start to give me a call? And you'll start to hear their why real fast. And as soon as they start talking about, again, personal things, family members, ask them to expand on that a little bit. So what do you mean by that? And again, what happens is we expose our why, and then we can find out their why. And as we move forward, again, I'm telling you, that's one of those where it's kind of just that arm in arm, almost like we're just walking down the trail and we're just finding the destination. And when we find it, it's over. Those are the calls that nothing in this industry is easy, but those are the calls that definitely go in a much more satisfying way than kind of jumping all over the place. Great question. Find both the whys, but tell them yours and then identify theirs.
What if I'm a new agent? How do I show that I'm an expert?
That's a great question. So I tell this story all the time, especially when we get agents that are kind of graduating to the phones for the first time, right? They've really, a lot of people we hire have never sold insurance. A lot of them never been in sales. And so the thing that I tell them is this: we've all been to a restaurant. I'm not going to name names, but you'll probably know which ones I'm talking about, where they'll have the server come up, and then right behind them is a server with a big trainee button on their shirt. And it's like, ooh, I feel so sorry for that person because it's going to be kind of awkward. And most importantly, if anything is wrong with the food, right? If you told them to hold this or add extra this and it's not there, you immediately go, it's because I got the new person. It's because I got the new person. Well, the beautiful part about insurance is we don't have to tell people that we're new. Now, we don't want to lie to them either. We don't want to lie and say, I've been doing this for 30 years when it's our second day on the job. But regardless of where you are, you had to go through some sort of training, some sort of coaching to get where you're at. Again, there's a huge barrier to entry in this industry, and it's called the insurance license. Depending on the state that you're in, it's got anywhere between a 70 and an 80% pass rate, which means 20 to 30% of the people that want to do this for a living cannot get into the industry. So tell them that, hey, you know what? I'm a licensed benefit advisor. I'm a licensed insurance agent. You know, I had to go through X, Y, and Z to get my licenses. And the reason I got into this industry, see, there it is. There's our why. The reason I got into this industry is, and what that does is it subjugates how many years you've been doing it. Even if you've only been doing it for 6 months or a year, it shows that I do this because I like helping people, and this is why. It's why the why is so important, especially early in a phone call. Great question. Any other questions?
How do I use foreshadowing if the person I'm calling just wants to know the price?
Ooh, we got this one last week a little bit too. And I mean, here's the thing. If you want to use the potato chip reference, go for it. I would honestly say something along this lines, like, you know, here's the thing. You can buy insurance from a number of different people. And at the end of the day, they're all relatively similar plans. But what impacts you personally is going to be vastly different among these different plans. Like, what if you just walked up and down the aisle in the grocery store? I don't care if it's milk or if it's potato chips or if it's cookies or whatever it is, and you just blindly picked one and threw it in the cart. Would that be the best bag of potato chips for you? Or if you took your time and walked down that aisle and looked at everything, maybe you're a spicy person, maybe you're a sweet and savory sort of person, maybe you like pretzels, maybe you like corn chips, whatever it is, by slowing down just a little bit, you can guarantee that you can get the one that's going to work best for you. And here again, we go into the why. I like to slow things down a little bit for my customers because I don't want to just sell you a policy to sell you a policy. I want to make sure that what you're getting is going to work for you. Because if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't matter what the cost is or what's written on the piece of paper. So I do want to just ask you a couple of questions. I promise it's not going to take overly long. In probably a span of 12 or 15 minutes, I'm going to know kind of a little bit about you, and then I can make a recommendation. So tell me a little bit more about X or Y or Z, and then we just kind of move in that capacity. Great question, because I'll tell you what, I sold property and casualty, and that's the first thing out of their mouth. What's the price? I don't care. If you're not less than what I have right now, I don't want it. And again, I tried that for a while, and I ate a lot of ramen. And then I started selling the features and the benefits and explaining what happens if you go up in your coverage a little bit, how it protects you and your family, how it protects you from financial ruin and things like that. And explaining to them that you can get a lot more coverage for only another 15 or 20 bucks a month is a huge, huge benefit. And again, it keeps them coming back. Let's see.
All right. What are the cues I need to be listening for that I'm losing the prospect's interest during a cold call?
Ooh, yeah. 1 and 2 word answers. That's a key thing. The thing that I always teach is the first 5 to 7 minutes of the phone call should be 80% the customer talking, 20% you talking. And if they're going too fast, don't be afraid to slow them down. Hey, I'm trying to write all of this down, or I'm trying to type all of this into my notes. So I don't mean for you to stop, but I just need you to slow down a little bit. Because again, we want them to tell us what's going on. It kind of ties into what we talked about last week with our open-ended questions. Again, we foreshadow, open-ended questions, and away we go. If you haven't kind of picked up on this, these 3 weeks are kind of like building blocks that we've been going with here. We build some rapport, we ask some questions, we foreshadow, and that's how we win the first 5 to 7 minutes of the phone call. And believe it or not, the people that say no, I'm going to shop around at the end. It wasn't that we were a bad closer. It wasn't that we did a terrible job closing. It's we didn't do a good enough job in the beginning of building that trust. That's why most of these deals, in my opinion, don't close. When I'm listening to phone calls, I'm like, we got an uphill fight here. We went zip code, dental, and that's all we did. Whereas if we slow down a little bit, foreshadow how we can help and why we want to slow down, build some rapport, ask some good questions, I promise those convert at a much, much higher rate. They're customers that stay with you and they turn into referral machines. Any other questions? We're coming right up on 10:30. So I think we'll kind of cut you loose here unless anybody else has a burning question we want to ask before we jump out. I think we'll wrap it up there. So I'll tell you what, we're gonna put a nice little bow on this thing next week. So make sure and show up because we are going to talk about callback cadences. One of my, it's nails on a chalkboard to me, and I'm not gonna excuse me, I'm not gonna share anything with you. You have to show up. But if you don't do the callback cadence right, it's the easiest way to scare away somebody that we've done all of this work with up to that point. So again, I appreciate each and every one of you taking some time out of your busy day, sharing my birthday with you. Honestly, I appreciate that as much as anything else. But we'll see you here next week, same bat time, same bat channel. And we're going to talk about the callback cadence. Thank you, everybody. Happy Thursday.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
Thank you.